Debunking UFC misconceptions. Within the UFC, a lot of fans have misconceptions about certain things. Whether they think a certain fighter is washed, whether they think a certain fighter is a championship caliber fighter, or whatever it may be. There's a lot of misconceptions that MMA fans have, and in this video we're going to be talking about some of those. But before we get the video started, my name is JuicyMMA. I make opinionated fight breakdowns. If you're ready, hit that subscribe button and let's get right into it. In general, when looking around the UFC and looking around MMA as a sport, there's a lot of things the majority of the MMA fan base get right. Whether it's certain fighters they believe are going to turn out to be champions, whether it's certain champions that they believe are going to become all-time greats, there's definitely a lot that the MMA fan base gets right. But with that being said, there's a lot of things that the MMA fan base gets wrong, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at some of those misconceptions. So the first misconception on my list is Magomed Ankalaev can wrestle. As when Alex Pereira was champion the first time around and when he was getting a bunch of title defenses, a lot of fans pointed to Magomed Ankalaev as the guy that could beat Alex. Now obviously he did end up beating him in the first fight, but it's not for the reason a lot of fans thought. A lot of fans thought Magomed would be a really difficult fight for Alex due to the grappling threat, and a lot of people see Magomed Ankalaev as this great grappler just because he's from Dagestan. But in reality, that couldn't be further from the truth. Magomed Ankalaev is a striker first that can grapple. Is his grappling terrible? No, it's not terrible, but it's definitely not as elite as a lot of fans may think, and we saw that in his first fight versus Alex, as although he shot in for a lot of takedowns and got pretty deep on a lot of takedowns, Alex was able to stuff every single one. And of course in the second fight versus Alex, there was no takedowns to be had, as Alex ended up finding a quick knockout. But in general, could Magomed Ankalaev have success in the grappling against certain guys? Yes, he could. He was able to have a lot of success in the grappling against Jan Blachowicz, but Jan Blachowicz has terrible takedown defense. Could Magomed Ankalaev have success in the grappling against certain other fighters? Of course he could. He has shown that throughout his career. But at the same time, I don't think he's this elite grappler. And at this point, even after the Alex Pereira fights, a lot of fans still seem to believe that Magomed Ankalaev is the best grappler and this elite grappler at the light heavyweight division. But in my opinion, I don't think that's the case at all. Now, the next misconception that's on my list is Israel Adesanya is washed. As typically when you talk about a fighter that's washed, you're talking about a guy who has no chance of competing with some of these higher level fighters at his particular weight class. As for example, Tony Ferguson, when he was going on his 1,000,000 fight loss streak, he wasn't really competing with a lot of the fighters he went up against. He went out there, he got dominated, and sometimes he even got finished. So that's the kind of fighter that I would consider to be washed. But when you talk about Israel Adesanya, he's competing against very high level competition. As if you look at his most recent performance against Imavov, he was winning that first round. He was doing the better work for the most part. Obviously in that second round he ended up getting finished, but at the bare minimum he proved that he's still able to at the very least compete with some of the higher level fighters at the weight class. Or even besides his Imavov fight, the fight before that against Dricus du Plessis, a lot of fans thought he was winning that fight before he ended up getting finished. So nonetheless, I think it's pretty clear that Izzy still has the capability to compete with a lot of the higher level fighters at the middleweight division. And in my opinion, I don't think he's washed. Is he in his prime? No. Is his chin as good as it used to be? No. Is his reaction time as good as it used to be? No. But at the end of the day, he still has the capability to compete with some of these higher level fighters, and I do think he still has the capability to have success at the middleweight division. Obviously he does have a fight coming up against Joe Pyfer, and I guess we'll get a lot of questions answered in that fight, but in my opinion, I don't think Israel Adesanya is completely washed. Now the next misconception on my list is Muhammad Mokaev is elite. Ever since Muhammad Mokaev got cut by the UFC, a lot of fans seem to think that this guy is not only going to be a top 5 fighter at the weight class, but he's almost a guarantee to be the champion of 125 pounds. But in my opinion, I just don't see that, as when he was within the UFC, he had a lot of trouble with certain fighters. Yes, he was undefeated. Yes, he did look really impressive in certain fights, but at the same time, there was a couple of different matchups that I didn't see a championship caliber fighter in. As for example, when you look back at his fight against Alex Perez, yes, he ended up winning a decision, but that fight was extremely close. And I don't consider Alex Perez to be this champion caliber fighter at the flyweight division. And even in some other performances that Mokaev has had in the UFC, he definitely didn't look super dominant, at least in my opinion. And yes, it is possible outside of the UFC he's made some significant improvements, but at the same time I just haven't seen it yet. So at this point, if he ever did get re-signed by the UFC, I just don't consider him to be on the elite class of the flyweight division. I don't consider him to be nearly as good as guys like Joshua Van, Manel Kape, Tatsuda Taira, or Alexandre Pantoja. Now I know he does have a victory over Manel Kape, and a lot of fans like to point to that victory, but if you look back at that fight, for one, there wasn't much going on in that fight. Mokaev found a couple takedowns and kind of just laid on top of Kape, but for two, Kape ended up having a John Jones toe sort of injury in that fight, which clearly had a significant factor in that fight. And in my opinion, if they ever were to rematch, I would favor Manel Kape to win that particular fight. So in my opinion, is Muhammad Mokaev a good fighter? Yes. I do think if he were ever to get re-signed by the UFC, he probably would be a top 8, top 6 guy at the weight class, but do I think he's this elite fighter, a championship caliber fighter? I don't think so. I don't think he's as dominant as a lot of fans think he is. Now the next misconception that I want to touch upon is Shara Bullet is UFC caliber. Now at this point, I don't think many fans see Shara Bullet as this elite fighter, as one point many fans did, but at the same time, I still do think there are a majority of MMA fans that see Shara Bullet as a halfway decent fighter, a guy that can make the top 15 and a guy that can get some wins against some ranked opponents. But in my opinion, I don't think that's the case whatsoever, as when you look at Shara Bullet, I think his game is extremely limited. In terms of his grappling, he doesn't really have much of it. He can't offensively grapple, and even his defensive grappling is pretty bad. As if you look in his UFC debut against Bruno Silva of all people, he was getting taken down relatively easily in that fight. But outside of just his grappling deficiencies, he's pretty limited on the feet as well. As on the feet, he does have pretty good kicks at range, but if you're able to get in close against this guy, he doesn't have many answers for that. As in close, he doesn't have a great ability to offensively box, but also most importantly, he doesn't have great defensive boxing either. As we've seen it in multiple different occasions, most recently against Marc-Andre Barriault, where lower level fighters were able to catch Shara Bullet with some pretty big shots. Now yes, Shara does have a really good chin and he was able to survive, but if his chin wasn't amazing, he probably would have gotten finished by some lower level competition. So in my opinion, I think Shara Bullet's game is very, very limited, both on the feet as well as on the ground. And not only do I not think Shara Bullet can be a top 15 type guy, I don't even think he's UFC caliber. But those are some of my MMA fans' misconceptions. Of course, I could be wrong on some of these. Of course, we will get some answers on some of these misconceptions that I listed before relatively soon, as we do have Israel Adesanya fighting against Joe Pyfer. Maybe Muhammad Mokaev will get re-signed by the UFC. We'll see how Shara Bullet looks in his next fight. We'll see what happens in a lot of these different scenarios, but in my opinion, I feel strongly about a lot of the points that I've made in this video. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video and want to support the channel, be sure to hit that join button for members only live streams, videos, discounted merch, best bets, alongside with additional perks as well. I really wanted to thank all my current channel members. You guys do an amazing job at supporting the channel and keeping these videos coming, and once again, I just wanted to say thank you. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys agree with some of my UFC misconceptions, or do you not agree? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these two videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.